Things are starting to get pretty scary. Joanna is putting pressure on Elliot to find Tyrell. The FBI is closing in on fsociety, and the Dark Army is right behind them, looking to clean house. It's Mr. Robot, episode 2.8, eps2.8h1dden-pr0cess.axx. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to our coverage of this week's episode of Mr. Robot. So, there are spoilers ahead, just so you've been warned. Alright, very tense episode. Things are getting tight, things are really moving forward as we're barreling towards the last couple episodes here of the season. Now it starts out this week with sort of a great scene between Terry Colby and Fisher. We talk about the stakes that the big boys are really playing with before we get down to the brass tacks issues of Darlene, fsociety, and Elliot. Now Darlene and Cisco are staring down at the beaten and broken body of Vincent. Now if you remember, Vincent was part of the crew that Darlene had sent down to DC to throw the cut off bronze balls of the bull through the Capitol Rotunda down into Congress in that great scene from a couple of weeks ago. Now he's not looking too good, and what we find out later in Dom's sequences, of course, is that there seemed to be something going wrong. Basically, that whole group ended up in a car chase with the police, ended badly. I'm assuming a car crash. Everyone was captured except for one guy, that one being Vincent, who of course headed back up to meet up with Darlene. So I'm assuming it was a car accident, just the way the bruising is with the internal bleeding, and of course the nurse at the hospital saying later on that these aren't recent injuries. We found out this was a couple of days ago that all of that happened. Took that long for him to get up there, and of course for Cisco to run into him. So I'm assuming it's a car crash that caused all of that. And it's sort of an interesting sequence there too between Darlene and Cisco, because I think Darlene's in kind of a bit of the psycho mode. After dealing with Susan, the lawyer from Ecor, and that whole murder and burning the body down there at the dog pound, she seems to be quick in that mode of like, well, he's seen my face, he knows where we are, we can't just take him to the hospital, he could talk to people. Really in that defensive covering mode. But I'm glad Cisco was right there. I mean, Cisco is the Dark Army connection, and I think he sees how the Dark Army operates. And obviously, not really comfortable with the way that things went with the lawyer and the whole, again, cremation at the dog pound. But I think is also seeing that sort of elements of Dark Army reflected there. That's not what he wants to deal with. So I think there was a great little sequence there of him, like, pulling her back, kind of throwing in her faces, you're not the leader, you're trying to take charge and just keep things up, but that isn't your role. This isn't what you do. And this leads to the whole kind of pressurized with taking him to the hospital and Dom and their eventual whole meetup there at the end. And with Dom, she's pulled up to Susan's apartment because of course I'm assuming that the guys that were captured told about the apartment, that's what sent the FBI up there. And then once they talked to neighbors and got a drawing of Cisco, that's what pulled her in. So kind of a round way to get there, but it gets Dom on track. And she's having to deal with a lot of rushed movement from the directorate. After the whole video went out, they're pushing everything. So they're running up there. They've ruined any chance of surveillance on the house just in case Cisco might come back and they might be able to follow him. So she's got to kind of get things moving. And unfortunately, the director wants to take the drawing and put it out in the media. Dom knows that's going to signal the Dark Army. That's going to get him killed in a heartbeat. So this puts a lot of pressure on her to find them fast. So it's really sort of a great whole sequence right there, dealing with her trying to find the information, tracking down into Cisco's apartment, getting to the hospital eventually, after, of course, the picture went out and the hospital called them. And a fun little story, and meanwhile in the hospital, we had that fun little story of Darlene talking about her as a kid traveling to Coney Island and being picked up by a stranger, taken home, given what she wants. The whole opportunity, I think the whole point of that story is just really to illustrate that there is the opportunity that she could have had a very different life. but she wouldn't have had Elliot in there. And it's really illustrating how important Elliot is to her, how much that other side that she is. And again, as Cisco had pointed out, she isn't the leader. Elliot is. Elliot's the smart one. Elliot has the ideas. Elliot is the whole drive behind everything. Without Elliot, she's very much lost. So anyway, these just a great sequence, really leading up, like I said, to that final moment, which I'm going to talk about again in a little bit more in depth in a bit, of this shot outside of the cafe with the Dark Army showing up and showing that things are right there at the end. If you didn't know, if Darlene didn't know, the stakes right there spelled out right in front of her. Meanwhile, we have Elliot, who of course is getting the pressure by Joanna to find Tyrell, kind of putting him in a tough position. And I love how Joanna's trying to use her whole sexy thing with him and the whole story right there. A lot of stories going on in this episode. Everybody's telling a tale. Hers is a creepy one, how she can get her husband to sleep with people to get her stuff. Yeah, Joanna's sort of a weird girl. But of course, Elliot doesn't want to tell her that Tyrell's dead. I mean, as far as he knows, Tyrell is dead. That's what Mr. Robot told him. And he has no reason to believe they sort of came that tete-a-tete. But you can't tell him, or he can't tell her right then. He's got creepy bodyguards starting right behind him. But really, I think he is interested enough to pursue it himself. One, and he throws out that important question is, well, who is making the phone calls? And especially once the phone rings and Mr. Robot disappears, now that really pushes him to find out what's going on. Not used to Mr. Robot disappearing. Why did he do it? Has he been lying to him? All the imagery that we've gotten implies that Tyrell is dead, but if there's one thing that we've learned from the show is we can't always trust what is thrown out to us. So, I love the whole sequence of him getting the phone location, faking being a cop, contacting the cell company and getting them to find the phone for him. Especially, I mean, brilliant as the bodyguard's right behind him going, I have all of these guys that have been doing this and they haven't been able to do jack. I mean, it's awesome. This is Elliot. Elliot thinks outside the box. That's his strength. Finds the address, sends him off with that creepy little line, he wouldn't be calling from that address. Now, it's 92 something. I don't know everybody's address here. I don't know. I mean, my first thought is, it's coming from inside the house. Is it coming from Joanna's place? I don't know. Again, I don't know what the specific address is. And I don't think Elliot knows what Joanna and Tyrell's address is either. So he may not respond immediately to that. But it doesn't matter because he's got to go and meet up with Angela, who is, after that scene with Dom and after all the pressure of that, ready to turn herself in. Doesn't want to turn Elliot in, doesn't want to turn anyone else in F-Society in, is willing to take it onto herself. Not sure how she's going to do that. And that might be where the lawyer comes in. Because if she's going to tell him about, they already know about the disc, but if she's going to tell him about the femtocell and everything else, the natural question that's going to come up on their end is, well, where did you get this from? Who are you reporting to? Why did you do this? And she's not going to want to give up that information. She's not going to give up Elliot. She cares for Elliot. I mean, she cares for everybody, but there is that connection with Elliot. And I think, and I enjoyed that last little moment where Elliot also, again, really trying to connect. Feeling bad because he disappeared off for a month. But he's got to be able, he had stuff to deal with too. He had the whole Mr. Robot thing going on. So it's not like he was able to really be functional out in the world, dealing with everything else that was going on. Better really for him to focus on that. But the guilt is going to come in. But I love that little moment between them, that sort of uncomfortable kiss there where he just sort of reaches out. And she did respond. It was a little just off the side and what's going on here moment. She did respond, she did react. Again, we've got a strong connection between these two characters. And as he leaves, two more people show up and they've got a nasty look with Angela. Now, my first thought there is, of course, it's Dark Army. Dark Army's everywhere and they're cleaning house. They don't want to deal with anything going on. but we do know we're going to see her next week. Angela's story is not over with. That would be an odd way to end it with everything else that's going on. So don't think that's Dark Army. We'll have to wait to find out who that is. Probably E-Corps. Probably E-Corps people. But anyway, as I said, overall a great episode, really putting the pressure on, really tightening things up as we head forward. And of course the big question on Elliot's head is, what does Mr. Robot have to do with it? He had to do that whole final adventure by himself, which was sort of weird since Mr. Robot's been there for so long. So what questions for that remain? Why? Is Mr. Robot lying? Probably. Can't always trust him. I mean, that's the one thing that we've learned. Even though we've been given all this information, we've been shown all these things, if there's one thing that we learn with this show is you can't always trust what you see. Now, in this episode, we also had two just beautiful bits of camera work that I just want to get into real briefly. One, that tracking scene on Fisher in the opening sequence where he is telling the story about him needing to be the most powerful person in the room. Great insight into that character right there. But just that whole long shot that starts far away and slowly as he comes in really just gets right up and focuses there. One, it's a long continuous shot, and that is something that I always love. Something that really impresses me are long continuous shots. Unbroken. It forces the actors to really have to live in the character, really be in that moment, and it really brings us into the world. But again, we have the other long continuous shot that was beautifully done, and that of course is that end sequence with Dom when she gets to the cafe. Just wonderfully, wonderfully done. As cafe's in the far corner, she runs up, makes the phone call, and then maintaining the shot. And then again, it really brings us into the world when they do that. As she goes away and then goes into the restaurant, and then we got the Dark Army come up. He steps out, machine guns them down, she pops him off, and then of course he ends up killing himself, just like in China. Get wounded, they take themselves out. They erase their memories, effectively. Take away anything that any information that you can get from them. So again, just a beautiful shot. And what we see from that shot, if you pay attention, is nobody died. I mean, the Dark Army guy died. But as he approaches, and I don't know, would you go all the way across the street with the machine gun out? Very apparent. She's inside, the lights at the windows, maybe hard to see. But she does see, warns, everybody ducks down before he starts firing, and then she just pops up real quick, boom, boom, drops right back down. Because she doesn't want to stay up. Do the shot and get out of the way, see what the response is. Tactically smart. And then, of course, he takes care of himself. And she runs back out and then right back in front of the camera. I mean, it was just a beautifully done shot. And I love the visual storytelling that they use in this show. And just great, just powerful way to end this episode. Knowing the Dark Army is there, knowing all these pressures are coming up in fsociety, and ending the episode like that with that big, long shot. Sort of leaves us guessing, but really pulls us into that moment. I thought was just beautifully done. And then just a couple of little moments that caught my ear. One, the bit from Terry Colby at the very beginning where he's talking about, oh my God, Trump's running in the race. With the dirt that I have on him, I could be his running mate or I could be there. I just thought that was kind of a fun little moment. Again, bringing us back to the early stages because this is all last year, folks. This is all happening last year. So I just thought that it was kind of a funny moment of really, again, bringing in Trump, especially these two powerful men. And they're talking about another powerful man running for office. Then, of course, Fisher's quick response off of that is, politics is for puppets. I just thought that was great. And when Elliot is in the electronics store getting all of his equipment, bodyguards over there playing Call of Duty, just thought that was hilarious. I'm thinking it was Call of Duty. My TV isn't great enough that I could get the super zoomed in picture on that. It would seem something appropriate for the character. But I just thought that was a fun little aside. Now there is that one moment in the tracking shot where Elliot is looking at the results of the 5-9 hack. and seeing the build-up trash and the people in line to get money, and he's questioning, is this really what I wanted? Is this the result that I was looking for? In the midst of that, there is a sign that says 5-9 extended hours. And that just sort of caught my eye, because I wasn't really sure who was calling it the 5-9 hack, and why was it being called. At this point, I'm assuming that it's probably the date that it happened on May 9th. And so 5-9, kind of like a whole 9/11 thing. Not sure. Anyway, just seeing that sign kind of brought those questions up. And why would that be? Does everybody calling it the 5-9 hack? And why the extended hours at that point? Maybe to get all of your equipment. I don't know. Anyway, just found it to be an interesting little sign, little picture there while he was reflecting over the results of the hack. And then finally, the moment where, again, with all the stories that were going on, Joanna's telling a story about being all creepy, and then Darlene's telling the story about her as a kid and being kidnapped by the woman with the pink lipstick. The same time, then we had the bodyguard start to go into his story about the people that he has driven. And I think this is sort of a sign of how much he likes working for Joanna and maybe Tyrell, maybe more Joanna. But I just love that moment where he sort of just puts him in the background like, oh, no, I can't get into their story time. And then addresses us and asks us to look around his apartment for him. Again, another great bit of camera work, but just Elliot involving us, the audience, in to try and help him figure out what is Mr. Robot's motivation, what else is going on with Mr. Robot. I just thought it was sort of a great moment. We've always been part of the story for Elliot, and it's just really nice that he's actually involving us in some of the ideas. Now, I have to say, looking through the apartment, I didn't really see anything. There looked like something up on one of the shelves, which was sort of a white Ernie looking thing or something. But really, just from the distance, there's nothing that we can really tell. And I doubt that what Mr. Robot is looking for is sitting right out in the open. It might be. But again, kind of irrelevant. To me, it was just more of the idea of involving us as part of his psyche as that other person to help him look around and help to try and solve this question. I just thought that was just a wonderful little moment. All right, so that I think wraps us up for this week. Two episodes left with this season of Mr. Robot. Got a lot of stuff going on. What is happening in the Congo? Congo's got a lot of natural resources. Is that what the Chinese are after? Or, because the federal government is taking over the plant, are the Chinese looking for a new place to dump their waste, their nuclear waste? Is that what was going on over there? Again, we don't entirely know what was up with the plant, but I think that the Congo is connected. One, of course, he's talking about the Chinese, and that immediately involves White Rose. But is this his adjustment for dealing with that? And is this going to give him the power over White Rose so he can be the most powerful man in the room? I don't know. Fisher's got a weird outlook on life. Anyway, so we've got that. We've got dealings with the Dark Army. We've got Dom. We've got Angela. Where is Darlene going? Did she take off outside the back of the restaurant, or is Dom going to have her? And how much pressure is the FBI then going to put on her? Is Elliot soon going to be in their crosshairs as well? We got 2 more episodes. We're going to find out a lot, I feel. So, if you enjoyed what I had to say, you can hit that like button. Want to find out what we're talking about over those last 2 episodes? Go ahead and hit the subscribe button right here. You can come back every week. And also, once this is done, we'll be wrapping up Fear the Walking Dead, I believe, that week as well. Have a few weeks off until Walking Dead starts. But we will be going straight into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So we will be continuing with our reviews non-stop. Thoughts, ideas, what do you think the motivation is? Do you know what's going on in the Congo there? Why don't you throw those down in the comments section below? We'll keep a little dialogue going on. Other than that, you can catch me on Twitter. Of course, I'm at Darren Jakes. There's the address right there. And that's it for us. We're done. We're out of here. I am gone. I am D. And I'll see you guys next week. Take it easy. Bye-bye.